I've been wanting to start this podcast for a long time now, but the planning and the structured outlines that I've been working on have bored me to hell. So I'm going to jump in and just start talking. And hopefully these types of insights that I'm going to offer are going to help you scale your e-commerce business and grow your marketing in a more insightful way. I want to chat about things that come up with our clients, talk about things that come up on a regular basis with my team internally, and topics surrounding e-com, marketing, Shopify, Klaviyo, email, anything related to online business and growth. And let's just jump in here and get started. I want to talk about something that came up today in conversation around advertising and expectations around results as how they relate to advertising spend. So here's the issue. I got somebody who is looking to scale. They want to start spending more, but they're concerned that their ROAS isn't high enough. They don't feel that they're confident enough to scale the budget up and maintain the ROAS that they were looking for. Now, expectations of ROAS, I think, should be talked about right at the beginning of any partnership or relationship with how it relates to advertising. I think ROAS is a touchy subject, and I think that it oftentimes gets looked at with the wrong set of eyes because there's a lack of understanding of how advertising actually works. So let me get a little bit more detailed. This person wanted a 2.2 ROAS, essentially wanted to double every dollar spent. And they were concerned that they don't want to scale up the budget because their ROAS isn't at that 2 mark. But the first thing that I question is, okay, well, where is the brand at? Is the brand an existing brand? Is the brand looking for brand growth? Is the brand looking to scale, create new audiences, test new things? Have they been advertising? There's a ton of questions that go beyond just whether or not is it possible to have that ROAS. A lot of brands or companies could have a high ROAS, if they have a lot of brand exposure and people are just searching their name. An agency or a company could make them look like they're doing really well in advertising without actually doing anything to their top line revenue. They might just be holding a 4 ROAS, running branded search campaigns. So it's really important to know what the tactics are behind the campaigns that are running in the accounts, but also just having an understanding of the fact that an agency or someone managing your ads could make it look like the ROAS is doing really well, when in actuality it's not really doing much. So I'd like to just cleanse people of that thought process of always thinking about ROAS. I think as a new brand, or even just somebody's getting their feet wet with advertising, that you should stop focusing on that ROAS or set the expectations much lower. I think just anywhere over 1 is a great place to start. You're going to need to do a lot of testing to get your campaigns up and running. You're going to need to test a lot of new audiences. You're also going to need to try to build your audience, and those things take a lot of time. Setting an expectation to pull in a ROAS of 4, for example, is just going to slow everything down, and your revenue and your audience growth is never really going to happen, especially if you don't have a strong enough budget. So lowering that ROAS, I think people think of it as sort of an end, it's you're never going to make that money back. But in actuality, the idea is to invest, and this first round of advertising, or even in a long-term goal, should be to invest in the long-term growth of your company. If you're short-sighted on this and you're thinking that you're going to see growth or expect immediate results in advertising, you're going to be terribly disappointed and not happy with anybody who's doing your ads. So I think that first and foremost, like, look at this initial ad spend as an investment for the long-term growth of your company. Um, you, you need the budget to be able to test and experiment. And a lot of the times people come in with too low of a budget because they're looking at their monthly costs and stuff. Like, they're not looking at this as like a yearly cost necessarily. Like, they want to see $2,000 turn into $4,000, and then when they spend $3,000, they want to see $6,000, and the like possibilities of that actually happening are pretty slim, unless you're in like a really niche market, or you have like, or the market's pumping and you have like the audience already built. But if you're entering a competitive marketplace with a lot of other brands and nobody knows about you yet, and you don't have like much else in the mix to build up your brand, you better have a pretty high budget, and not come in low, because you're just going to end up wasting your money anyways. So I think my biggest kind of advice here is to stretch yourself against where where you might be like comfortable, and again, like, look at this like an investment. If I had a brand right now and I was trying to grow, I would like consider my various tactics, obviously, for brand growth. But if I was considering investing in advertising, I would look at it as like a large number, and how I would split that out, I think, would come in time over like growing the account. For example, I would say, oh, let me take this 100 grand and invest this year in advertising. But I would start off high in my budgets and I would scale from there, because let's say you do achieve that 2 ROAS, it might be because your budgets are high enough. So then at that point, you could then have the revenue to pay to increase your ad spend budget. But if you start off at like $2,000 a month or something really low, with the expectations of like going from 2,000 to 4,000 in a couple months, depending on how things go, I think you're also going to end up with some disappointment there. We see this a lot. I mean, most people come to us with too low of a budget. Most people have those expectations that this is like a slow burn. And I think in cases like we do see, we often see growth still, but the potential that some brands could have is so much bigger than what they actually end up achieving because of these restraints against advertising budget. Of course, I would say that there are a lot of other tactics that should be invested in as well. But when we're talking about putting into paid search or paid social, I think considering like the actual goals of your company are you really need to kind of have like you kind of need to step back and make a decision. Do you want to grow as a brand and see that type of growth where you're building your audience, you're building up your base, you're building up your like email subscribers, you're building up your kind of awareness of your brand? Like, if you're just focused on revenue right from the start, you're not going to build like that. You're going to build really slowly, and I think along the way waste a lot of money. So my first piece of advice is to reconsider how you're positioning your ad spend with either your agency or how you're handling it internally. Start thinking about it like an investment. Stop thinking about it like every dollar spent has to turn into this amount of money. You need brand growth, likely, if you're listening to a podcast that's talking about a guide to e-commerce.